Mark's hands gripped the steering wheel as his old pickup rumbled down the empty street. The clock on the dashboard blinked 11:47 p.m. He was late again, but that wasn't new. A crayon drawing taped next to the speedometer caught his eye, a small house with a red roof and a big tree in the yard. His 6-year-old daughter, Lily, had drawn it last week and proudly called it our future home. Mark smiled tiredly. It was why he worked 2 jobs, why he never complained about the exhaustion that clung to him like a second skin. He wasn't just keeping them alive, he was building something for her. The quiet night air was suddenly broken by a sharp, panicked scream. Mark's heart jumped. He slowed the truck and listened, another cry, this one muffled, coming from a narrow alley up ahead. He could have driven on. He had work again in the morning, and Lily would be waiting at home. But Mark had been a Marine. He'd seen fear like that before, and something deep inside him refused to ignore it. He slammed the truck into park, jumped out, and sprinted toward the sound. In the alley, 2 masked men were shoving a struggling man into the back of a van. The man's expensive suit was torn, his face pale with terror. "Hey!" Mark shouted, his voice booming in the night. The kidnappers froze for a second, just enough time for Mark to charge. The world became fists, shouts, and chaos. He fought with every ounce of strength left in his tired body, fueled by adrenaline and the thought of Lily waiting at home. Moments later, the masked men fled, leaving Mark and the stranger gasping under the alley's flickering light. Mark leaned against the brick wall, chest heaving, knuckles scraped raw. The man he just saved was shaking, trying to catch his breath. His suit jacket hung off one shoulder, and his expensive watch gleamed under the alley's dim light. You saved my life," the man stammered, his voice trembling. Mark glanced toward the street where the van had disappeared. His pulse was still pounding in his ears. "You okay? Can you stand?" he asked, crouching down. The man nodded and let Mark help him to his feet. Up close, Mark could see he was older, maybe in his late 40s, with sharp features that looked out of place in an alley like this. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." The man started, then stopped, suddenly recognizing Mark's battered clothes, the oil stains on his work boots. "Who are you?" "Just someone who couldn't keep driving," Mark said simply, brushing dirt off his jeans. "We need to get you somewhere safe." The man hesitated, then managed a small, grateful smile. "I'm Jonathan Hale," he said, extending a trembling hand. The name meant nothing to Mark, but it would have to millions. Jonathan Hale was one of the country's most powerful CEOs, a billionaire who rarely appeared in public without security. Jonathan glanced around nervously. "They'll come back. I need to call someone." "Then let's not stay here," Mark said, guiding him out of the alley. They reached Mark's beat-up truck. Jonathan looked at it, surprised, but climbed in without protest. As Mark drove them away, the city lights flashed across Jonathan's face, revealing something unexpected, not fear anymore, but a dawning sense of wonder. By the time Mark pulled into a quiet parking lot, Jonathan had made a call that sent a fleet of black SUVs racing toward them. Within minutes, suited security guards swarmed the area. Jonathan stepped out, still shaken but safe. "Sir, are you hurt?" one of them asked urgently. Jonathan waved him off and turned back to Mark. "Wait here," he said, stepping closer. "I owe you my life. Tell me what you want, anything. Money, a job, whatever it is." Mark shook his head, almost embarrassed. "I didn't do it for a reward," he said quietly. "I just did what anyone should have done." Jonathan stared at him. "Anyone?" "No. Most people would have kept driving." Mark just shrugged. "Well, I couldn't." He was already turning back to his truck when Jonathan caught sight of something on the dashboard, the crayon drawing of the little red-roofed house. "Is that yours?" Jonathan asked. "My daughter's," Mark replied with a small, tired smile. "She likes to dream big." Jonathan hesitated. He could have gone back to his world of wealth and private security, but something about Mark, the humility, the refusal to take anything, stopped him. "Let me at least drive you home," he insisted. Mark reluctantly agreed. When they arrived, Jonathan's sleek SUV looked wildly out of place in front of the aging apartment complex. Through the window, Lily was waiting, her tiny hands pressed against the glass. Jonathan stood there for a long moment, taking it all in, the peeling paint, the broken porch light, the little girl who lit up when she saw her father. That night, Jonathan didn't just see his rescuer. He saw a man fighting for something far greater than himself. The next morning, Mark was making instant coffee in his tiny kitchen when a knock echoed at the door. He opened it, confused, and froze. Jonathan Hale stood there, no security detail this time, holding a paper bag that smelled of fresh coffee and warm pancakes. "Thought you and your daughter could use a better breakfast," Jonathan said with a faint smile. Mark blinked in surprise. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Jonathan interrupted gently. Lily peeked from behind her dad's leg, her wide eyes curious. Jonathan knelt down to her level and handed her a small box. Inside was a set of crayons and a sketch pad. "For the artist," he said warmly. It was the first time Mark had seen Lily smile so big at a stranger. Over coffee, Jonathan asked questions, not about the night before, but about Mark's life. He learned about Mark's struggles, 2 jobs barely covering rent, dreams put on hold since his wife passed away, the constant balance of work and fatherhood. Jonathan listened quietly, then said something that caught Mark off guard. "I need someone I can trust, someone who won't run when things get dangerous. Come work for me. Head of security. Benefits, salary, everything. You'd be home every night for her." Mark sat in stunned silence. It felt impossible, like the kind of chance life didn't just hand out. "You saved my life," Jonathan added softly. "Let me help you live yours." For the first time in a long time, Mark felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Months later, Mark stood in the driveway of a quiet suburban neighborhood, his arm wrapped protectively around Lily's shoulders. She stared, wide-eyed, at the house in front of them, a cozy little place with a red roof and a big oak tree in the yard. It looked exactly like the picture she had drawn months ago. Mark swallowed hard, hardly believing it himself. This house wasn't a dream anymore, it was theirs. Jonathan Hale stood a few feet away, smiling. He looked different now, more relaxed, less like the untouchable CO Mark had first met. He felt more like family. "You didn't have to do all this," Mark said quietly, still overwhelmed. Jonathan shook his head. "You saved me that night, Mark. You reminded me there are still good people in this world, people who act, not because they have to, but because it's right. This isn't charity. This is me keeping a promise." Lily tugged on Mark's sleeve. "Daddy, can we go see my room?" Mark laughed, the sound full of gratitude and relief. "Go on, kiddo," he said, and she ran toward the front door, her laughter echoing in the evening air. Mark turned back to Jonathan. "You changed our lives." Jonathan's expression softened. "No, Mark. You changed mine. You showed me what really matters." As the sun set behind them, Mark stood on the porch, breathing in the smell of fresh paint and cut grass, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: peace. One act of courage had saved a stranger's life, but in the end, it had given Mark and Lily a brand new one.